The reading I'd like to share with you this morning comes from the great Maya Angelou. It's still hard for me to believe that she left us in 2014. And this is called Alone. Lying, thinking last night how to find my soul a home where water is not thirsty and breadloaf is not stone. I came up with one thing, and I don't believe I'm wrong, that nobody, but nobody, can make it out here alone. There's some millionaires with money they can't use, their wives run around like banshees, their children sing the blues. They've got expensive doctors to cure their hearts of stone, but nobody, no, nobody can make it out here alone. Known, all alone, nobody can make it out here alone. Now, if you listen closely, I'll tell you what I know. Storm clouds are gathering, the wind is gonna blow, the race of man is suffering, and I can hear the moan. Because nobody, but nobody can make it out here alone. Alone. All alone. Nobody, but nobody can make it out here alone. So if I were to have the opportunity to speak to each and every one of you and say, hey, tell me about what friendship means to you, and tell me about your friends. I'm imagining that all of you, each of you, would know what to say right away. I probably would too. Unofficially, here in our congregations, and I'm sure in every other faith community, but unofficially, we talk a lot about friendship. As we have already this morning, we recognize, especially in a place where we are together, sharing our difficult questions and sharing our joys. We are aware of what it means. I can't tell you, over my years in ministry, which are piling up faster than I think they should, but they are anyway, how many times I've heard folks, including folks here in this congregation, say things like, I'm so glad I came to this place. I've met people I can really be friends with. I've made friendships here that I never thought I'd have again. The fact of the matter is, that's true for me too. Some of the closest, most special friends I have are fellow UU ministers who I've met along this journey. I have a really good friend who was ordained on the exact same day that I was, and we both share the heritage of being Latinx women. So we celebrate what we call our ordiniversary every year. And there's just something, we've lived far away from each other as long as we've known each other, but there's something so special, right, about those bonds. So why, you might ask, are we discussing friendship officially in a sermon, in a religious service? Why are we going to speak in this setting about the kind of help we ask from others, the kind of help we seek for ourselves, and the kind of help we are willing to offer to those around us who need it? You know, Susan and Rachel talked to us about this incredible experience of camp and how many people helped and befriended in different ways in order to make that happen. And I'll tell you, at that picnic, when I watched the kids running around and showing to one another and showing me their bird houses, and I made that one, and who put the flower in my birdhouse? And oh, are you the lady who gave me the candy? It must have been me. It was just, I mean, I don't want to get too sappy, but it really warmed my heart. Because why are we here if our children aren't here? if our children and our grandchildren aren't here to carry on this vision, which is not just a 7-generation vision, but as far ahead as we can even imagine, of a faith that affirms our lives together. I smiled so widely on Friday, I think my face hurt when I got home. But I did. I did say to myself, as you said, Carolyn, and as others have said, that's why we're here, right? We're here to foster friendship and to foster trust and to foster community and to foster healing and to foster the validity of doubts and the validity of loss and grief and kindness and grace and forgiveness for one another, because Lord help us, we are a messy, messy species. We're here to foster resilience and respect and covenant, the promises that we make to one another, and we make them knowing that because we're human and we're fallible, we're going to break them. It's not if, it's when. But covenant, the promises we make, give us the avenue to come together again and say, I am sorry. Let's rebuild. Let's repair. Let's make that relationship like the pipe that you solder, not me, I don't solder, but the pipe that you solder in that place, right, that becomes stronger than the whole rest of the thing. For those of you who solder, you can tell me if I'm right or wrong, but it's stronger than everything else because that's where we have made the repair. I said to you earlier, and I'll say it to you again, my main message to you this morning is a really simple one. Let's take a moment to think, to reflect, to experience what this type of friendship, this type of growing friendship, if maybe like me, you have the experience of a friendship that began years ago and it is so much more now than it might have been when it started, because it still grows. The Irish poet William Butler Yeats once famously said, "There are no strangers here, only friends you haven't met." And that, I think, could be a sort of sub-vision statement for our congregation. For those of you who are visiting, for those of you who might be here for the first, second, or third time, know that we become more complete every time someone comes, and that we are here to do anything we can, and I know I speak for all of us, to accompany you, help you on your spiritual journey. When I started in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous 40 years ago, I remember some of the old timers. I wasn't old then, I am now, but I wasn't then, and they would say, "I may not really like you, but I love you." You're like, okay. And what that meant was, I know you, and you know me, even though we've never seen each other before, because we have had that same experience of despair and finding redemption. And I may not like you, but I will do everything I can to help you find that joy that is your birthright when you become sober and clean. One more example for you, and this one from Yeats to AA and now to 16th century Transylvania for the lifetime of the one and only and first ever and probably the only ever Unitarian king, John Sigismund, whose court preacher is said to have preached, "We need not think alike to love alike." That says to me that we are called to expand, constantly expand our understanding of friendship, even for us introverts. and our understanding of what we can offer, even if it's only a smile and a good morning. And here's where the coffee is after the service. Please stay for that. And here's the sad part. In our world today, friendship, the opportunities to interact with actually real live human beings has become smaller and smaller to the point that I'm really frightened by this. There's a new study I learned of this week by the Survey Center of American Life. The number of Americans with 0 close friends has quadrupled since 1990. Quadrupled. It's at the lowest point in the history of this nation. In a 2024 article in The Atlantic, the writer Derek Thompson says more about this decline, and I encourage you, I'll put it on Slack, I encourage you to look at this. Between the years 2003 and 2022, American men reduced their weekly face-to-face time by more than 35%. For teenagers, in that same time frame, it's been more than 45%. The share of Americans who volunteer and the share of Americans who attend religious services, places where, Lorianne, as you shared with us, places where we actually have the chance to be with one another, have declined precipitously as well. Interestingly enough, Thompson has learned in his research that we turn more frequently to pets now than we do to other human beings, especially women. Now, I have nothing against pets, but that's a huge change, that we spend more time with pets than we do with one another. In the last 20 years, Americans have doubled the time they spend with their pets. That's a lot. As I said a moment ago, the biggest decline is among our youth, which makes it no surprise that the rise of anxiety and depression and different kinds of mental dis-ease and unhappiness are fueling a mental health tsunami here and around this world. Now, you won't be surprised when I tell you that Thompson and many, many others truly believe that the rise of the screen in our lives has really contributed to this change. Our laptops, our phones, et cetera, and of course, social media. And there are deniers who say, no, this is not a problem. But I give you an example. In 2019, NYU and Stanford University conducted a randomized study trial in which they paid people to get off Facebook. And guess what? They did. So maybe we may need to bribe ourselves into social health. The Harvard study on happiness, the longest study ever conducted on human happiness and well-being, concluded in 2023. They had a very simple solution, which had they asked me, I would have told them. Good relationships are the key to happiness. Is this a surprise to anybody? And you may not need to hear this from me, but I need to hear this from me. Because I have to tell you, ministers, we often, for a variety of reasons, we often allow ourselves to become isolated. As much as you and I, want to tend to our physical fitness, our social fitness, our fitness and the expansiveness of our relationships is really important. So in the last 10 or 15 years of ministry, as I've conducted weddings, which I totally love to do, I've noticed a trend that really I don't know, it gives me, I think it's beautiful, but it's also a little frightening. So couples like to write their own vows until the day of the event, and they go, oh, I really don't know what I'm going to say, but that's their problem. And they often say something like this: you are my lover, you are my partner, you are my everything, you are my best friend. I am so lucky to have found you, and so lucky to be marrying you today. And it's beautiful because they mean it with all their hearts. And yet, how much pressure it is to put on one human being to be everything, and how limiting it can be, at least this is my experience and opinion, to not have the 4 or 5 or 6 people. I mean, one person can't do everything. You know, other friends, other people we're close to, we need, you know, as someone once said, we do need a village. We need a number of people. So in thinking about this and reading about all of this, I decided to learn a little bit about the history of friendship. This is a topic I've never explored. And I found a fantastic book by a man named Dr. Michael Kauth, I think is how you pronounce his name, who's now at UMass. He's a clinical psychologist and a professor. And so he's explored the history of pair bonding, you know, how we pair together humans into pairs in order to raise children who take, you know, more than 2 decades to grow up. Did that sound snarky? It did, didn't it? I'm sorry. I mean, having been through that, I shouldn't be snarky about that. So not only has he written about pair bonding, which a lot of people have, and it's really fascinating, but he also includes friendships. So the theories that a lot of these scientists have is that, pair bonding is part of what helps our young survive, and reproduction is all about survival. But he says that friendship too is part of our DNA, is part of our need to survive. And he talks about primates. Some of our closest relatives are chimpanzees. They don't mate for life. They mate for about 10 seconds. But they do form bonds of friendship and alliances with members of their own sex within the community. The male chimpanzees join together in bands, and bands that stay together to patrol the communities. And they do this, it's part of their thing, and they do this together, and there are hierarchies within the patrol, but chimpanzees aren't alone, this is all over the animal world. And the females band together to help one another in raising the young. So it might be one female with a baby, and 3 or 4 other females may be related. But not only does that help the child survive, but it protects the child from some of the males who might get very aggressive. So this notion goes so far back that our ancestors, our ancestors from the primate world, our ancestors from the pre-human and human world, we have turned to one another for support and for survival and for companionship, not just to 1 or 2 others, but to an entire community of others, to not only make our lives better, but to help us survive. Now I'm going to ask you what sounds like a ridiculously exaggerated question, but I mean it. Do you think we need our friends to survive in this moment? If you do, just let me know. And I mean survive, not fall, thank you. Not to fall into, despair. not to fall into that place where nothing seems possible anymore, where so much is being lost and there's so much grief to process. I don't know about you, but it's hard to keep up. I'll say it again. Beloved fellow Unitarian Universalists, many of you have asked since that fateful day in November 2024, what can I do? Make a friend. See a friend in the face of a stranger. Give of yourself. Allow others to give of themselves to you. All of us need all of us to make it. Amen, dear ones. Ashe, and blessed be.